In this video, you will build a random user generator project using Fetch API and async and await in JavaScript. So let's get started in coding. Before we start coding, let's quickly talk about what an API is. An API is like a waiter in a restaurant. You send a request and it brings you the data you ask for. In our project, we are going to use the random user API, which gives us random user information like the name, email, location, and picture every time we make a request. Now, this is a random user API, which is what you are seeing on the screen. This is what we're going to use in this project to generate a user information like the email, location, picture, and the name. So you don't need to worry about the backend. We just ask for the data and use it in our JavaScript code. So we return to Visual Studio Code. Already I have my HTML code staring at me. You can see this is just a dummy HTML code. And I have my styling CSS. This is the CSS I've used. Now this video is not for HTML or CSS class. So I just have to get it pre-prepared. I'm focusing on JavaScript. Get that now. So, but if you want to learn HTML, CSS, I have a video on that. Please check my page. You'll see the video for HTML, CSS. So let's get started. Now, if you notice my HTML elements, I have several IDs as an attribute in each of the element tags. Look at the image tag. There's an ID called user-img. The same thing goes with my H2 tag. Paragraph tag. There are a lot of IDs here. Why am I inserting the ID? It's quite easy. It's easy in the sense that I want to make reference to it in my JavaScript code. That is why I'm using the ID, which will lead us to get element by ID JavaScript. So the first thing I need to do is to start my JavaScript. So I'm using the internal JavaScript for this particular project. So I'll come here and type the scripts tag. Now, this is where I'm going to put my JavaScript. Basically, this is where I'm going to put my JavaScript. So what do I want to do? I want to make reference. I want to reference the HTML elements. That's what I want to do. I want to call them. I want to make reference to them. So I'll put a comment here. So I'll call this DOM element reference. Let me call it DOM elements. DOM element reference. I want to reference each of these DOM elements. The first one I want to reference is the image. So I'm using the get element by ID to reference this particular image called user-image. The same thing will be done for the others. So you can see that I've referenced the name, get element by ID, user-name, which is for the name. I've also referenced the email using get element by ID email. I've referenced the location, which is get element by ID location. And I've also referenced the button, which is get element by ID new user. So I've stored them in a constant here. You can see it for yourself. This, and this. That's the first thing I need to do. Now the second thing is to create a function that will fetch the API. I remember I told you earlier that we are using the random user API, the random user me API, .me API for this particular project. So there I will come here. Let me comment this as async. I'm using the async and await. So if you want to learn more about async and await and fetch method, please check my video. You'll see some of those async and await there. So yeah, I'll comment this and I'll say function. Let me just call it function to fetch user data using async. Let me come here and say using async. Using async. Use it async and await. Yeah, that's what I'm using. So I'm going to create a function that will do that for me. Basically, I'll create a function that will do that for me. So this is a function that I've created called the I don't know why this guy is helping me to do what I did not ask him to do. Let me ignore it. Escape. So this is a function I've created. I'm calling it fetch random user. That's the name of the function. Now, what will this function do? It will enable me to communicate, to speak to to the endpoint, to the API, so that I can fetch data from there. Remember earlier I defined API for you. So that about API, that you going to a restaurant to what? To demand to buy food. So you wait for them to what? To give you the food after you pay. So the same thing I'm doing here. So here I will come here and do what is called, I'll put it in a try catch. Now, what is the meaning of a try catch? The try catch is for you to what? To catch an error in case there's an error in the work. Sometimes API, because it depends on internet access, there may be slow internet or internet fluctuation. So it's advisable to store it in a try catch. So the block try, any successful outing will be in the try, while the failure will be in the catch. So I'm going to create a block called try catch. Try catch. That's the first thing I'm going to do here. Try catch. Try catch. So I'm going to catch for an error. Yeah, so that is the try catch. So this is just, I'm not using this. So let me take this, guys. Now this is the first thing you're going to do. So let me format my code. Sorry. Format my code so that you can see that clearly. Good. So that is what you do first. And the reason is not far-fetched. You want to make sure that in case the API breaks, in case there is a network fluctuation, I should be able to successfully catch the error and display it to the user. Oh, sorry, there is a network fluctuation. Oh, dumb, or any other thing I want to display. So now let me focus on the try block, which is here, the try. The try block is meant for everything successful. So yeah, let me show a loading state. So the first thing I want to do is to show a loading state, although this is optional. Show loading state. Show loading state. This is optional actually. This is optional. So I'll come here and I will say username.text content equal to, take these guys out. So username.text content equal to loading. Now, some of you've done JavaScript. Like I told you, this course is not meant for beginner JavaScript. But if you have you must have a basis of JavaScript. What this username, remember I declared a variable, a constant called username. What this username.text content will do, it will add this particular text, which is in string, called loading, inside this name here. It's going to add it somewhere here. Remember, I've declared a variable called user-name, and I'm storing it as username. So what I'm doing, and I am trying to append a text content, and that text content is loading inside this h2. So that once I open the page, I'm going to see loading here. That's the first thing I want to do. So the next thing I'm going to do is to append the text, initialize this my email and also location as an empty string. Because for now, at the start, I don't want anything to be there when I fetch the user and the API. I want it to be none. That means to be an empty string. It is only when the API has been successfully been fetched, that's when I want to populate it. So to do that, I'm going to do this. I'll call this username an empty. Yeah. So I'll make the email field to be empty and also the image field to be empty too. So I'll say user img. The same thing, source to be empty. Yeah. Because this is an image, I'm going for the source. Sorry, there's no this there. Take this out. So I'm going for the source. I want these three elements here to be empty, so that when they fetch, remember that I'm fetching an API endpoint. So at the moment when they are fetching this API endpoint, it should be empty. It should only be populated when I have successfully finished consuming the API endpoints. That's when it should populate. So to do that, I will set it as initialize or initially to be what? An empty string. That is what I've just done in line 78 and line 80. So let's proceed now. So the next thing I want to do, basically the next thing I want to do now is to fetch data from the API. Remember that the purpose of this function, fetch random user, is to fetch the API. We've not fetched any API yet. So here I'll comment this as fetch data from API. I'll say fetch data from API. So good. So now, how do I fetch data from API? It's simple. It's simple. It's very, very simple. Now look at this. Const response equal to await fetch. Const response equal to what? Await fetch. Now, what is this fetch method is all about? What is this fetch method all about. Now let me explain to you what the fetch method is talking about. That fetch method makes a request to the API. I repeat, this fetch method you're seeing makes a request to where? The API. And where is this API coming from? It's coming from random user me.min API. So I am making a request to this random user.min API endpoint. That's what I've just done on line 82. And I am storing it inside the response. Storing it as a constant response. That's what I've just done. So here, I want to now check if I am getting the response. If I'm getting the response. So I'll come here, I'll say if it's not, that means if I'm not getting the response, that means maybe there's an error from some, oh, what's this guy doing? Maybe there's an error somewhere. If the response is not okay, then throw me an error. Remember I told you that what? Since API depends on network, you can't predict network. There may be network fluctuation at any moment. So it's advisable to what? To check if the response is okay or not. So yeah, I'm checking if the response is not okay. That's what this line is doing. Then what should happen? Then it should just tell me, throw an error, telling me network response was not okay. That's it. To throw you an error if the network is fluctuating somewhere along the line. That's what this line we do. So the next thing, if otherwise, I'll come here and I'll convert the response to JSON. So I have to convert this response to what? To JSON. Now, what line 86 is doing is going to convert the response we get here. Going to convert the response we get here to JSON. Now, what is JSON? JSON is that format that API is written on. JSON actually means JavaScript notation. So it is that data that JavaScript understand very, very well. So you have to convert the response you are getting from that API to JSON. If not, it's not going to understand what you are doing. That's why I'm using what? The JSON. I hope that is clear. That's why I'm converting the response I'm getting to a JSON. So there's also the await here. What is the await? The await waits for the request to finish before moving to the next line. Now this await, it will wait for this request. Remember that this request is stored as response here. It will wait for that response to finish what it is doing before it will move to the next line. And what is the next line? The next line is to now what? Fetch all the required data. And the response, I told you that this response of JSON, it has to convert your response to JSON. If not, your API will not work. But JavaScript only understands JSON. So I hope that is clear. So let us console.log this. So let me console.log this to see if actually we are getting results on our console, so that we'll know what we're doing. But first, remember that this is a function here that I've created. For a function to work, you have to invoke a function. So yeah, I can easily come here and say fetch user. I have to invoke a function. So I'm going to save this, Ctrl S. So I'll save this now. Then let me go to the browser to see if actually we are fetching this particular API endpoint. So let me come here and open it on the browser so that we can see if we are fetching the data. So yeah, I'll check this on my, so you can see what we have there right now. So I'll go to my inspect, right click your browser, click on inspect, then go to your console. This is my console. So let me clean everything there. Okay, I refresh it. I see we're not getting anything yet. Nothing is happening. Fantastic. Nothing is happening. Don't worry. We have not yet done anything special. We've not console.log this. So we have console.log this. I'll say console.log. I'll say user. But let's see if we're getting the user on the screen. So let me see if I'm getting the user on the screen. Okay, so let's, oh. Okay, so I'll put my console.log, I save all. And I go to my browser now. So I go to the browser. Let me refresh this so that we can see it. So you can see that we are getting results already. You can see We are getting the promise. Response, gender, you can see that we're getting gender, ID, location. You can see the ID we're getting. We're getting location, parama, the rest. You can see that we are getting that. Getting login, we are getting name. You can see that we are actually fetching the data precisely. So this is the user, and the user, we have a lot of data here. So you can see, so when I console.log this user, I'm actually getting all the user data. And the data is what you're seeing on my console here. You can see the data. We have that's location, email, gender, phone, picture, register, and a lot more. So you get that now. So now that we've gotten that and our API is working, the next thing we are going to do right now is to update the DOM with the user data. So we need to update this our DOM. This is our HTML element, so that this data that we are seeing here will be what presented on the browser, not on the console. So we want all this data that is being populated on our console terminal, on our console, to show on the browser. Right now, it's not even showing on the browser. So we want to do that so that it shows on the browser. That is what we want to do. So I hope that is clear. So we want to do that instantaneously. So let's get to work now. Go back to my VS Code. So now the next thing I want to do now is to update the DOM with user data. So I want to update the DOM with user data. So let me come here. Let me come here and take this out. Let me leave it. Let me just come here and comment this. Comment it out since you've seen that already. So inside here, I'll come here and I'll put a comment and I'll say update DOM. I'll say update the DOM. Update DOM comment with user data. User data. Sorry. Don't want that. Now, what this update DOM with user and data we do. Now, if you notice, I want to store the words. I want to store what do you call it? The user's photo in our photo browser. Let me show you what I'm talking about. This is the browser here. You can see there's no photo here. And I'm showing you the endpoint that populates the photo. What's the endpoint? What is the photo? We have a certain picture here. You can see this is a picture here. And in picture, we have three types of picture: large, medium, and thumbnail. So if I want to access medium, it will be user.picture.medium. If I want to access the large picture, it will be what? User.picture.large. So here, I will come here. That's what we are seeing here, because when I console the log user, it populated all the data from the API. So here, I will come here and you can see user.picture.large. Let me comment the rest so that you can see that for picture will show on the browser. So let me comment the rest and save this. I'll go to my browser. If I should refresh the browser now, you see that this picture will load. Beautiful. So you can see that we have gotten that picture from the API endpoint. Let me do the rest. Let me uncomment the rest so that we can see exactly what is playing out. So if I should save this now, you can see now for the username, it will be what? User.name.what.first. Based on what we saw in our endpoint on the console. Based on what we saw on the endpoint on our console, which I've shown to you earlier. So now I want it to be dynamic. That's why I'm using the backtick here and the dollars listening. This is template literal, which you have done in your JavaScript basics. But in case you don't understand JavaScript, please, I have a course on JavaScript in my YouTube video. Just try and watch that. I also have email, user.email. Then I have the location, user.location.city. So if I should save this, I'll go to the browser. If I refresh this, I'll have the right username, the location, and the email of this user. So you can see Vicente Alvarez. His email is there. His location, Citala, Mexico, there. So you can see, so it is randomly generated actually. If I refresh the browser, you see that this photo will change to another photo. You can see that it is randomly generated. You can see that's very simple and easy to do. Now, the next thing I want to do now, our button is not working. You can see it's not working. So I want us to be able to click on the button so that it will generate this random user. So how do I do that? It's very simple also. So I'll go to my VS Code, my code. Yeah, underneath here, I will come here I will comment this as button. Button click to upload. Button click to load users randomly. Just randomly. So I'm going to come. Remember that we have a button. Let me come here. We have a button that we declared here when we are declaring our DOM elements. Document.get element by ID. New user is the name of the button. Look at it here. The ID. Name of the button, new user, which we declared here. And store it in a constant called new user btn. This new user btn is what I want to basically use here. I want to add an event listener to it. Please, I have a course on this on JavaScript, full tutorial on JavaScript in my YouTube video. Please watch that so that you get to understand how an event listener works. So I'm adding an event listener to this new user.btn, and this event listener takes into two parameters: the click event and the fetch random user. Remember, this fetch random user is this function here, this particular function here. So I'm going to store it here, and because it's a click event, I had a click event here. So if I should save this and go to the browser, if I refresh this, if I click this, you can see it's working. Everything is working perfectly. So you can see that you have created a random user generator using JavaScript. How easy it is. So guys, please try to subscribe, follow us, comment, like our video so that you can get more of this video. So I still remember myself, NS.